So this article is titled Doing Research with Streetcorner Crack Dealers by Bruce A. Jacobs. Let's suppose that you want to study street corner drug dealing. How would you go about it? You could pass out questionnaires, but to whom? Considering how they might be filled out, what confidence could you have in the answers? You could interview people who have been charged with selling illegal drugs, but how would you know if they are similar to dealers who have not been arrested? If you decided to conduct a survey, whom would you survey? If you wanted to conduct an experiment, how would you do it? And how could you do it safely? Jacobs faced this dilemma. He wanted accurate information on drug dealing, but how was he to get it? His solution was to go where the action was. He talked to dealers on the street corners and observed how they sold drugs. He learned about their lives and why they engage in such risky behavior. Getting dealers to open up wasn't easy, however, for this sociologist was a stranger to them, and his questions seemed too nosy. On top of this, his looks and speech marked him as someone who was not part of their world. At first, the dealers thought that he was from the police, not exactly a comfortable or safe identity in this setting. In this selection, the author focuses on how he overcame these obstacles. Setting and respondents. Like other post-World War II Rust Belt cities of its general size and shape, St. Louis has suffered rapid deindustrialization, population loss, resource deprivation, and urban decay. Mobility to surrounding suburbs is high and continues unabated, taking important tax revenue and social capital with it. Since 1990, St. Louis has lost 15% of its population. The city's base of 341,000 makes the impact of such trends acute. St. Louis is developing a concentrated population of the truly disadvantaged, people with scarce resources and abundant social service needs that cannot be met and are getting worse. Such conditions provide an ideal context for drug use, drug selling, and other serious criminality. Historically, St. Louis has had one of the largest illicit drug markets in the Midwestern United States. In many neighborhoods, crack, heroin, marijuana, and PCP are sold openly and are available throughout the day, particularly on the troubled north side where social disorganization and urban decay are most pronounced. St. Louis arrestees persistently have high rates of cocaine, opiate, and marijuana-positive urine specimens. They are among the highest of the 24 cities measured in the Drug Use Forecasting Program. Emergency room cases involving cocaine and heroin mirror other large metropolitan areas and indicate a high degree of street drug institutionalization. Though street gangs neither control nor direct drug sales in St. Louis, the nearly 1,500 members of 45 different gangs facilitate them by providing the microstructural networks and massive contacts necessary for the trade to thrive. Among those most socially distressed and impoverished areas in the St. Louis metropolitan area, the study neighborhood generally outranks other local sectors in the percentage of people living at or below poverty, proportions of citizens unemployed or on welfare, dropout rates of children of school age, drug arrests, substance abuse rates, and various indicators of poor health. The study neighborhood and contiguous blocks have all the earmarks of an urban dead zone: abandoned buildings, burned-out tenements, garbage-strewn vacant lots, and graffiti-splashed walls. Groups of young men collect on the street selling crack, insulting one another's sexual prowess, getting high, and looking for an opportunity to make some fast cash. The study population is made up of curbside, street corner distributors, consisting of persons who routinely sell crack in the same areas, though each is a freelancer with his own supplier and responsible for his own profits and losses. These sellers are gang-affiliated, but not gang-directed. This book, therefore, is not about street gang members who sell crack, but about crack sellers who happen to be street gang members. Though the public widely perceives gangs to drive street drug selling, research has consistently demonstrated the rarity of such a phenomenon. Inner-city street gangs do not have exclusive control over crack distribution, and many street distributors are not gang members. Gang membership and crack selling correlate, but in a facilitating way. Gangs provide the connections and criminal capital necessary to do business. Street gangs, however, are unable to develop and implement hierarchical, functionally interdependent structures that would allow a formal business of selling to happen. As freelancers, the offenders in my sample are rarely fronted supplies, given crack to sell and allowed to pay for it later, sell for their own individual profit, and generally are in constant competition for a small number of compulsively addicted daily smokers who always try to negotiate the price down. Not infrequently, a number of sellers work the same street, corner, or vacant lot at the same time. Though not always blatant or obtrusive, transactions may easily be observed if looked for. Any organization between or among sellers tends to be crude, primitive, and fleeting. House sales are uncommon because the offenders usually lack access to private dwellings in which to do business. Their collective orientation as street gang members also is far too weak to support a social organization conducive to selling from private dwellings. Entering the setting. Studying active drug dealers is difficult and challenging precisely because their activity is criminal. Active offenders are generally hard to locate because they find it necessary to lead clandestine lives. Once located, they are reluctant, for similar reasons, to give accurate and truthful information about themselves. By definition, criminological field workers seek to explore the lives of those engaged in felonies where exposure could mean hard prison time. Outside observers represent a potential legal threat, a fact that impedes a good deal of ethnographic work. The more illegal the behavior, the more offenders have to lose if found out. Individuals may refuse to cooperate or may give less than reliable answers to protect their privacy. It is no surprise that outsiders, such as researchers, are often perceived as narcotics officers seeking to obtain damaging evidence for juridical purposes. Indeed, the most common suspicion that subjects have about field workers is that they are spies of some sort. I began frequenting a neighborhood known for open street-level crack sales. For weeks, I would either walk or slowly drive through the area to try to be recognized, attempting to capitalize on what Goffman has called second seeings. Under some circumstance, if he and they see each other seeing each other, they can use this fact as an excuse for acquaintanceship greeting upon next seeing. Unfortunately, this process did not go as easily as Goffman suggested. When I drove by, crack dealers yelled "scat" at me. Screams accentuated with derisive looks and obscene gestures. SCAT is an acronym for Street Corner Apprehension Team. This 15-man undercover team is charged with curbing street-level drug sales by apprehending dealers immediately after sales to one of their buy officers. Hiding nearby in unmarked cars, personnel swoop down on offenders in an attempt to catch them with the marked money just given to them by the purchasing officers. This money has either traceable die or serial numbers previously recorded that link dealers to undercover transactions. SCAT units were both feared and loathed, being reportedly merciless in their arrest procedures, which involved strip searches and no breaks. A few more weeks passed and more trips, but I had yet to make any direct contact. Finally, I decided to get out of my car and approach the individuals I'd seen dealing. Though this classic ethnographic technique of approaching strangers and initiating dialogue is said to be ineffective with drug dealers, I tried anyway. I told the dealers who I was and that I wished to take a few minutes out of their day to interview them about street life. Predictably, they scoffed, accusing me of being the police, and instructed me to get the hell out of here. 2 days later, I tried again. I showed the dealers my university identification and told them that the interviews would be confidential and anonymous and that they would be paid for their time and effort. It was the money that was critical in generating their interest, even the modest sum that I offered. On the street, money talks. Nobody does anything for nothing. Though I had made contact, making that contact stick proved difficult because dealers still suspected that I was tied to law enforcement in some way. Ironically, the police gave me my biggest credibility boost. Police and credibility. Hanging out with offenders on street corners, driving them around in my car, and visiting their homes must have been a curious sight. My appearance is somewhat like that of a college student. Shorts, t-shirts, casual boots, and baseball caps with round brims, just like SCAT wear them, as one of the dealers put it, are my typical attire. Further, I am white, clean-cut, and affect a middle-class appearance, traits the relatively poor African-American respondents associate with the police. To offenders who hadn't gotten to know me well or were waiting to pass judgment, I was seen as being on a deep-cover assignment designed to unearth their secrets and put them in jail. To cops on the beat, I was just another college boy driving down to Crackville with a user in tow to buy for him. Such relations are commonplace in the street-level drug scene and have generalized subculture currency. Users serve as middlemen and funnel unfamiliar customers to dealers for a finder's fee, usually in drugs and without the customer's consent, for being taxed, that is, but generally with his or her tacit permission. When cops see a nicely dressed, clean-shaven white boy wearing a baseball cap with a black street person in the passenger seat of a late-model car, A car with out-of-state plates, I might add. They scent that business is in the offering. My first run-in came 2 weeks after making initial contact with offenders. I was driving a field contact, an active crack seller, through a crack-filled neighborhood, a neighborhood that also happened to have the highest murder rate in the city with the 4th highest murder rate in the nation. We were approaching a group of 10 mid-teen youths and were about to stop when a St. Louis City patrol car pulled behind. Should I stop, as I planned on doing, get out and talk with these youth, some of whom the field contract marginally knew, or would that place them in imminent danger of arrest? Or should I continue on as if nothing were really going on, even though I had been driving stop and go under 10 miles an hour prior to and during the now slow-speed pursuit? I opted for the latter, accelerating slowly in a vain attempt to reassert a normal appearance. Sirens went on. I pulled over and reassured my field contact there was nothing to worry about since neither of us had contraband, I hoped. As officers approached, I thought about what to tell them. Should I say I was a university professor doing field research on crack dealers? A part I clearly didn't look? Should I lie or say nothing at all? "What you doing down here?" one of the officers snapped. "Exit the vehicle, intertwine your fingers behind your heads, and kneel with your ankles crossed," he commanded. The searing June sidewalk was not conducive to clear thinking, but I rattled something off. "We used to work together at blank. I waited tables, he bossed, and we've been friends ever since. I'm a sociology major up at blank, and he said he'd show me around the neighborhood sometime. Here I am." "Yeah, right," the cop snapped again, while searching for the crack he thought we had already purchased. 3 other police cars arrived, as the cop baited my field contact and me as how we really knew each other, what each other's real names were, which neither of us knew at the time, and what we were doing here. Dissatisfied with my answers, a sergeant took over, lecturing me on the evils of crack and how it would destroy a life others in this very neighborhood wished they had. I found no fault with the argument, listened attentively, and said nothing. After a final strip search in the late afternoon sun revealed nothing, they let us go, said I was lucky, and vowed to take me in if I ever showed my face again. On the second occasion, my field contact and one of his crack-selling friends were in my car when we pulled up to a local liquor store. The 2 offenders became nervous on seeing 2 suits and a detective car parked at the phone booth. I told the 2 to wait while I went into the store. As I exited, the 2 men approached me and showed their badges. "What you doing with these guys? Do you know them?" "Yes," I said, deciding to tell them who I really was and what I was doing. "Mind if we search your car?" one asked. "No problem," I replied. "Go right ahead." As one searched my car, for crack, guns, or whatever else he thought he'd find, his partner cuffed both of the offenders and ran warrants. As I soon learned, both detectives knew the 2 as repeat violent offenders with long rap sheets. "I respect what you're doing," the searching officer said as he finished and approached, "but you don't know who you're dealing with. These guys are no good." I told him thanks and promptly left. I did not realize it at the time, but these episodes with the police were absolutely essential to my research. Police provided the test I desperately needed to pass if my study were to be successful. The differential enforcement practices of these officers, where young minority males are singled out as the symbolic assailants and suspicious characters deserving of attention, benefited me immensely. Police detained me because I was with them. Driving alone in these same areas at the same time, though suspicious, would not likely have attracted nearly as much attention. I was guilty by association and deserving of the scrutiny young black males in many urban locales receive consistently. For my research, at least, this differential enforcement was anything but negative. Police had treated me like just another user and did so with the offenders present. This treatment provided the actions for me, the picture that spoke 1,000 words. Offenders' accounts of my treatment spread rapidly through the grapevine, solidifying my credibility for the remainder of the project, and setting up the snowball sampling procedure I would use to recruit additional respondents. Why police never attempted to confiscate my notes during these pullovers, I'll never know. Perhaps it was because they appeared to be indecipherable to anyone but me. Perhaps it was because they didn't reveal anything the cops did not already know, or at least thought they knew. Regardless, the law is clearly against ethnographers, who can be held in contempt and sent to jail for protecting sources and withholding information. This, of course, says nothing about issues of guilty knowledge or guilty observation. Being aware of dealing operations and watching transactions take place make one an accessory to their commission, a felony whether one participates or not. Criminological field workers almost inevitably will be co-conspirators, no matter their motives or intent. If one is effectively to study adult criminals in their natural settings, Polsky concludes, he must make the moral decision that in some ways he will break the law himself. Chain referral and data collection. The first 5 respondents were recruited directly from the dealers I initially approached. 4 of these 5 became contacts and provided 6 additional referrals. 3 of these 6 then referred 9 additional respondents. This chain referral method was carried out to secure a 40-person sample. 2 contacts in particular proved critical for recruiting work. Snowball samples, after all, are only as good as the gatekeepers on the chain. These 2 had multiple contacts in the study neighborhood and in neighborhoods nearby with similar characteristics, forms of sales organization and leader-customer, dealer-dealer relations. Roughly half of the 40 respondents moved in different sets and lived in different parts of the city, providing the opportunity to address the problem that chain referral methods have in creating a sample of like-minded offenders that offers limited response variance. This is the end of our excerpt. This piece continues in a full selection that you can access if you contact me. My email is jestrada@bethelsd.org if you would like to have the full copy. Thanks for listening.